was only 10 years old when a loud noise woke us from our sleep. So my brother opened the window and looked out into the street. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. My brother scrambled out the window onto the porch below. Then I dropped down beside him and stared open-mouthed down the road. For as far as the eye could see, people were kneeling in the street, saying the rosary and crying with tears dripping beside their feet. So I grabbed our bindlet, then returned to my brother Paul. Then we rattled the bindlet off the road until we heard our father's call. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. At first we thought our dad would be angry, for we were meant to be in bed. But instead he knelt beside us and asked to have a go instead. We stayed like that for an hour, until our young eyes started to close. So my father said it was time to go in, and to our feet we finally rose. The next day after school, my father explained about Britain's evil sin, and how you Bobby had lasted 66 days before your body finally gave in. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. I also learned about your parents, your family, your young son and your wife. And I realized the huge price you paid when you offered up your life. Since your death I've often talked of you and the other 9 men that died. And I'm not ashamed to say it, Bobby, we as grown men cried. Years later I found myself in the same prison cell where they had you bound. And it was a privilege and an honor to walk that same sacred hallowed ground. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. Every breath I took in that prison cell, I felt you with me in spirit and thought. So I started asking other prisoners about you and how you were caught. I read all your poetry, where you bled your agony onto the page, and your words burned deep into my soul as I sat in that H-block cage. I imagined the torture you endured, and I found it hard to breathe. So I closed my eyes and spoke to you, and you told me not to grieve. But I'm sorry, Bobby, because I'm not the only one that feels your loss. Because for us, the Irish people, you hung bleeding from the cross. But I'm sorry, Bobby, because I'm not the only one that feels your loss. Because for us, the Irish people, you hung bleeding from the cross. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets in their hand, beating a heavy-hearted lament for you Bobby Sands. Our neighbors were in the middle of the road with bindlets